Welcome to the Sports Directors, Episode 2. I'm Bill Pollack from MissouriNet.com, and joining me this week is Mike Grimm from the Minnesota News Network and Bill Scott from Wisconsin Radio Network. And so it was Bill's week to pick the topic, and he wanted to go with instant replay. I had just done a little podcast on my own venting about instant replay, so this will be interesting to see what you have to say. So since this was your topic, let's get right into it and go. Let's hear what you have to say.
Well, in my instant replay conversation has to do more with Major League Baseball. At this point in time, it's the one season that is before us, and this probably is a blanket statement across the board for any sport that uses instant replay. But I was baffled again, continue to be baffled almost every night when I watch a Brewers game or a Major League Baseball game, that they go to replay and what looks like it's obvious to you and I back home, play should be changed to out or safe, whatever the situation, and it doesn't end up that way. And these plays are supposed to be decided not by the umpires, but back in a studio in New York, and yet I don't know if they're protecting the umpires, the original calls, but it baffles me as to how they continue to not get it right. Now, I've always been a big supporter of instant replay. I believe that it doesn't take that long to get it right, and yet. But I do have a real issue with the fact that I don't believe they're getting it right nearly often enough.
Well, there was a situation about a week ago at Kauffman Stadium where it looked like the Royals had turned a sure double play, and it got checked by replay, and it came back and it was overturned, and then they ended up giving up a hit and with 2 outs, and it should have been 3 outs. It turned out, and Ned Yost was asking the crew chief at the time, Wendelstedt, and I can't remember the kid's name. I know Harry, but I can't remember the kid's name off the top of my head here. But he said New York. He asked Ned Yost if he's ever seen the New York offices, and he said it's amazing what they have, the technology that they have. And he said they have angles that you can't even imagine. And he said they must have seen something that changed the call or why they stuck with their call. And so they're getting more technology than what I guess we're seeing on TV and what we're seeing at the stadiums. Let's bring in Mike Grimm, who joins us here on the Sports Directors. Mike, what's your thoughts on instant replay? Are you seeing some obvious calls that are getting missed, or do guys just not have the guts to make the call in New York?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I'm in favor of it. I think expanded replay is fine. In fact, I think there are times, guys, where replay adds to the suspense of the game. I mean, people talk about the delay, and I do think there's something to be said for that. But if you're at the ballpark, especially, you're watching the umps, you're watching the two managers, 90 seconds to 2 minutes, and then all of a sudden the suspense builds, and you're waiting for the call safe or out or fair or foul or whatever the replay situation is. The other day, I was at Target Field. The Twins were playing the Brewers. I think Bill probably knows this play. Segura, the shortstop, the pitch was up and in. It ticked off the bat and then hit the Twins catcher, and Segura writhed around in pain. The ump gave him first base, and then it turned out the replay showed the ball never hit him. So that was a play. I didn't even know that was reviewable, but it was, and it changed. So I think a couple of things. One, they're not going to get them all right. I think the interpretation, though, is an interesting one because it's indisputable video evidence, and everyone has a different barometer as to what the rise to the level of how much is indisputable. What Bill may think is indisputable, I may say I think there's still some gray area there. So I think that we have to live with sometimes it not happening. The obvious ones are the ones that are killers. And then I think the implementation was it the Nationals last week that burned a challenge, got it overturned, and then they're out of challenges. And then there was a play later in the game that there was no ability for anyone to review, and the Nationals ended up, I think they ended up losing the game to the Cubs. And I think that part of it, maybe the implementation should change. Maybe like in NFL, that if you win the challenge, you get to keep it. I actually, as you guys know, I follow Big Ten football fairly closely and college football in general, and I don't mind the way they do it in that there is no challenge. It's somebody upstairs that beeps down. If the replay official in the press box sees something, he'll beep down and say, hey, give us a minute here. We're going to look this over. And I would think if I'm an umpire and you're not sure, I wouldn't mind having that thing delayed just for a second to make sure you got it right as well. And I think they have to make sure that they keep away from trying to embarrass an ump. I think that's the area they're trying to avoid, because look, if an ump's out there and 2 or 3 of his calls get overturned in one game, that can be an embarrassing situation. But at the end of the day, you got to get it right.
Yeah, well, if they screw up call, that could be Joe West's job right there if he doesn't get those done. You guys are right. You cover the Big Ten, and I think they handled it the right way. And Mike, you were talking about the Nationals and the Cubs, and that's the one that I went off on, because that's, while it certainly looks like the Cardinals are going to win the division, my thought was, hey, this was a game that could affect standings and wild cards in the National League Central, but it was one where the runner got picked off, and when you looked at it, Anthony Rizzo had 3 attempts to hit the base runner at different spots on his body and never did it, and they couldn't even look at it because they had run out of challenges. And my argument is, if you want to get the game right, to me, having the ability to look at replays in the 9th inning or 8th inning or on a game-ending play like this one is much more important than something that happened in the 4th, 5th, or 6th inning. And that's where it's got to change. If there's something close, then there should be somebody who says, you know what, this was a close play, this was a bang-bang play, this could determine the outcome of the game. I think the umpires at that point should say, hey, let's go to New York and just confirm this so that we get it right.
Guys,
Bill,
I don't know who in New York is, if these guys are tied to Major League Baseball, if they're former umpires. I don't know who these guys are. I do know this. I watched Addison Russell, the Chicago Cubs second baseman, stick his glove down in front of the bag. Now, the ball beat the runner on a steal attempt. It was clearly ahead of time. But Russell never did a sweep tag. He just set his glove down in front of the bag, and the base runner then got his hand clearly around the tag. He never ran into the tag at all, and yet the umpire called him out, and then video replay upheld the call. And it's clear, and I don't care, what anybody's definition of whether it has to be indisputable. To me, that was an undisputable situation, and they protected the umpires there. And I don't understand. I love replay. I love the concept of replay. I want to get it right. I don't think managers should have to hang on to a challenge in the early innings just in case they need it at an important time in the game. I like the Big Ten example that Mike, that you brought up. I watch. Obviously, I'm in Big Ten country myself here in Wisconsin, and I love the way they do it in the Big Ten, and they seem to do it fairly quickly too. There's no lengthy delays in Big Ten football replays, but I want to see this continue. I'd like to see some tweaks, but the guys in New York have got to stop, in my opinion, protecting the guys on the field. And if the play is something different, just because the ball beats the guy there, he still has to put a tag on it. The days of the phantom double plays in Major League Baseball and all that's got to stop. If you got instant replay, all you're doing is embarrassing yourselves, and I think that's what baseball is doing right now.
That's a good point. That's a great point. Do you think they're protecting, Mike? Do you think they're protecting players, though? All right, hey, listen, you need me to tag the guy? All right, I'm going to tag the guy. Now he might get hit in the face, and I could break his nose, or it's one of those things. All right, look, the throw beat him. Hey, let's not worry about guys getting spiked or a mitt to the face. Is that what they're looking at here? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that could be, Bill. I think that's part of the issue here. In fact, I forget which game I was watching the other day. I think Dan Schulman on ESPN commented on the idea that, if the ball beats him, it's an out. That's the way it's always been. Well, now what we have to do is everyone get on the same page, I think. Are we going to go by the letter of the law? In other words, no more neighborhood plays? Fine, let's do that then if we're going to do it. But we have to make sure we're all playing by the same rules. And like you say, Bill, if you're not going to protect, part of the neighborhood play was so a guy's, if a $20 million shortstop's knees didn't get blown up, and you allowed that, and everyone was kind of a gentleman's agreement. Well, now we're going to go by the letter of the law, and I'm good with that. I think we should. Then let's do it. And that means, hey, there's more risk of injury. Guys got to stick in at second. You may get a tag in the face. You may have some collisions because a guy's got to hold the bag longer at second. But I'm fine with that. Let's take it to the letter of the law and umpire that way. And then I also think part of the Mickey Mouse, where the manager, now they don't let the manager come running out. Last year, whoever it was would run out, and then they'd wait and look in until their video guy back in the video room at each stadium would look at the play, and they'd give the thumbs up or thumbs down. Well, in essence, they still do that. The manager now just comes up to the top of the step, or the top step of the dugout, kind of whistles at the ump, says, "Hold on a second." That's not necessary if we have it the other way, where some independent party, maybe it's a retired ump, is upstairs. I know in Big Ten football, the replay folks are oftentimes former officials or some sort of rules aficionados that obviously you got to know the rules and you got to have some authority. And I think maybe that's a way to eliminate some of that. You just buzz down and maybe have one on-site coordinator at each game. And then I actually like the idea of somebody in New York doing it as opposed. I'm not a big fan of the NFL where the actual official goes under the hood, because I do think, as Bill said, I think there's times where in that case that guy works, that guy with the the referee works with that set official that's got the call in question 17 times a year. And is he really want to come out in front of 70,000 people and 1 million people watching and on a dicey call overturn that? Or I think if you make it completely independent, it's a much better situation, a bit more transparent as well. So I'd be in favor. I like the New York thing. I think the NHL does it well with the way they have their headquarters set up, and it's kind of a general processing area. And I think that part's fine. I just think there's some tweaks that can be done to streamline it a little bit and then to make it more efficient. Take that out of the manager's hands. He has enough on his hands to worry about double switches and when his pitcher's gassed and who to pinch hit for than to worry about do I need to challenge here or not. I mean, it becomes kind of Mickey Mouse. Let some independent guy at the ballpark decide if a play should be challenged.
All right, so let me ask you guys this, and Bill Pollack, we'll start with you. Is instant replay working in Major League Baseball?
I think it is and I always go back and I compare it to football. I think compared to football, I think it is. I was totally against it because I took the impression of, all right, this is going to be like football where they're not going to have the guts to overturn calls. And I know we've talked about some gray areas here, but I think for the most part they're getting calls correct. And I think that the expansion of it beyond the home runs and now looking at different plays, it's gone a lot faster in a lot of cases. There's sometimes where they really have to study the calls, but I agree with Mike. It adds some suspense. They are getting most of the calls right. I think it just needs to be tweaked a little bit. But I think of all of the professional sports so far, it's doing the best job in terms of expanded replay. So I like it. I actually like it. I was against it at first. Now I think they just have to fine-tune it, and I want to see them get away from the football aspect of the number of challenges. And it's like, just get the calls right. If there's something close, you might have one game where there's no close calls at all, and you don't need replay. There might be a game where there's 5 or 6 of them. Well, use it. You've got the technology. Use it when you have to.
Mike?
Yeah, I think it's working. I think it becomes highly publicized when there's a call or two a week that seems so obvious that either needs to be upheld or overturned or what have you, and the replay part misses. We know the umps will miss some. They're human. They get whatever the number is. I think they cite 98% of the calls right. Well, I always used to joke with friends of mine that ump that anyone can get 9 out of 10 are easy. Everybody can get those. It's the 1 out of 10, the bang bangers that you got to get right. And I think I read that that right now of all the reviews, it's about 50-50. About half the calls are getting overturned. So on that 1 out of 10 that it's a bang bang or whatever, they're about 50-50, which is fine. And then of the overturns, you got to make sure those are right. So I think the goal at the end of the day, if you can get 99 out of every 100 right, then that's good. I think the numbers probably say that that's about where they're at. The issue becomes when in a Sports Center society and a message board and Twitter society, the 1 out of 100 that they miss gets headlines and it looks obvious to everybody. So I'm not saying we ignore those. I think you continue to work and discuss and see ways to improve. But I think 100% efficiency is probably too high of an expectation, because we all see things in a little different scope. But I do think in general it's working. And look, if it starts falling down to where there's, they're missing 1 in 10 and not 1 in 100 on the replay, then yeah, let's blow the whole thing up. And then I think eventually, and this is maybe another topic for another day, guys, I think we're going to have a day down the road where we're going to see an electronic strike zone, where like the K zone we see right now, where that will be, everyone will say, yep, that's it, we agree, the strike zone's set, and if the computer says the ball's in there, it's a strike, and the ump will still be down there, but he'll have a beep or something in his ear to tell him it's a strike or ball, and that can streamline the game a little bit as well. I don't think that's happening next year, but I'll bet you we have an electronic strike zone in a decade anyway. I
agree with you on that one, too, and that would be a good topic there. I could see like the guy having like one of those Buffalo Wild Wing pagers where the home plate is just buzz them. Oh, yeah, strike. All right, yeah, it kind of cattle prod him a little bit.
I'm not going to – I mean, I think it's a passing grade for instant replay. I'm not quite as high on it as both of you seem to be in terms of the percentage of plays that are right and versus wrong. I think that it's not going away, and I think they just need to do a better job of it. And they have to decide, the guys back in New York, are we really going to, we use the example of the tag and the phantom, the sweep tag or whatever, the ball, if the ball beats you. It used to be that way in Major League Baseball, or if the ball beats you, it didn't matter if you tagged the guy or not, you're out. And I was all right with that, but now that instant replay is in the game, it shows you a different picture, and you just can't you can't just go with the fact anymore that the ball beats you, so you're automatically out. It's a different story right now, and I think baseball has to do a little bit better job of getting more of those right. But, Bill, I do agree with you, though, that most of the time the calls are being correctly made on replay, but I just think that there's been too many lately where they're important calls at important stages of the game, and they're not always getting those right, and I think that has to improve.
Good topic. It'll be interesting to see how this shakes out when MLB, I'm sure, will reevaluate after the season. We talk about these guys in New York. We never see them. They're probably guys that have a suit and tie on, but wouldn't it be funny if the guy has like a sleeveless T-shirt on? He's got a big piece of it, New York slice. I can't tell. Keep the call the same. Yeah.
I bet. I bet there's a few pizza stains on their shirts before.
All right, gentlemen. Bill Scott from Wisconsin Radio Network, Mike Grimm from Minnesota News Network. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sports Directors, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks for watching.